So, welcome everybody to a special episode of The Silver Savage. Special to me. I'm going to go a little bit off script today. This is going to be somewhat of a personal confession, I guess, somewhat of a leadership, lessons to others. I'm sure there's going to be topics that we're going to be elaborating on in the future, but following some conversations I had with other people, Michael, who's actually in the room today, making sure the audio actually works fine. Conversations I've had with Steve over the past, I don't know, about 15 years, and just other people that I've been reaching out to recently, kind of made me face some truths. And instead of hiding behind a persona that I kind of like to project out there, figured what better platform than to come clean how I feel about things than doing it on a podcast. So this is going to be a lot about me. Steve is just going to look pretty like he always does. But I'm sure he's going to chime in at some point. So this is how the whole thing went about. In my discussions with people, I realized that I am not seeing what everybody else is seeing. And I know in the past I was laughing and joking. I said, I don't have PTSD. Steve has it. Fucking, he wants to kill kittens and whatnot. But
Love kittens.
I know you do. I'm just kidding. But I don't have it. I don't see a shrink, which I probably should. And I don't have nightmares, at least not that I recall. You can ask Tyler and other people that share the night with me if they feel differently. Um, but I guess at the end of the day, I do have trauma, but it just manifests itself differently. I think in my mind, it really comes into how I interact with people, and how I set goals for myself and what my expectations are. And I think that's really the trauma that I carry with me. But I'm going to take a step back, and I'm actually going to share a little bit of history with our listeners. So we started this podcast and we did a very brief intro, but we assume that everybody knows us, right? And Steve, you're going to share your background in a different episode.
God help everyone who hears
God
it.
help them, yeah. But I'm going to talk a little bit about me. So obviously born and raised in Israel. I always joke that that's why I speak funny.
I thought you were Canadian.
I am Canadian, but
Okay.
we don't share that.
Just
But
making sure.
I spent, at this point of my life in America, still speak funny. But I grew up in a very privileged and entitled kind of environment. So I grew up in a middle upper class neighborhood, right? Lived in a penthouse in a high riser.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised when you showed us the neighborhood that you grew up in.
So I had a cushion life, right? Almost to a fault, because everything I wanted, I was given to. And, a few years back, I went through a phase where I was blaming my parents for all my issues. I'm like, if they weren't to give me everything, every successful individual out there went through some sort of discomfort and challenges and whatever, and I didn't. And that's why I'm not successful. But to be honest, I can't blame my parents. They gave me every opportunity to excel. I just didn't take advantage of it. And when we put it in context, think about their parents being Holocaust survivors. They came from scarcity, right? And they were trying to give their kids everything that they didn't have. So as I'm reflecting now, I'm super grateful for everything my parents did for me. And the only person I can blame is myself for not taking advantage. I had access to the best athletic programs, academic programs, and I just didn't want to do it. If there's anything I would say is maybe my parents should have pushed me a little bit harder. But at the end of the day, that is not on them. That's on me. I was not self-driven enough. The way things are, though, in Israel at least, everybody serves in the military at 18. So you finish high school and you go in. And I was that little fat kid that everybody bullied and made fun of. I guess that's the extent of my challenging childhood. But no medical issues. So I knew I'm going to end up in a combat unit. And probably junior year of high school, I decided I'm going to start working out a little bit, so I can try and not die first day of basic training. And you start testing into specialized units, including being a pilot, our version of Navy SEALs, our version of Delta, our version of the rescue jumpers. You do all that while still in high school. And I started attending those tests and actually passing them, to my surprise, if certainly to a lot of other people's surprise. And I ended up serving in a very elitish unit, right? And I owe a lot of who I am and what I do today to my military service, right? My training was lengthy. It certainly shaped who I am. It certainly wasn't easy. It was there were a lot of nights where I questioned myself, but it was the first time in my life where I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna give up on that one. I'm gonna keep trying and see how far I can make it before they boot me out. And they never booted me out, so I ended up actually making it. But there were a lot of nights where I was doing some deep searching, trying to figure out who I am, what I want to be, what I want to do. And at the end of the day, I got some amazing training. I got amazing opportunities. I got amazing experiences. And I guess when people talk about trauma, right? So as an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, seeing combat, seeing battles, seeing people getting killed, having to kill people, it's not a natural progression of an American child, let's say, right? Or American teen going through that process. A lot of people always say that you shouldn't let the military, if you serve in the military, define your identity, right? And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I owe pretty much everything I am today and do today to my military service. All the skills we teach, right? That's direct results from the military. The drive I have to excel and grow, that's a direct result of the military. The way I want to lead and manage my teams, not always successfully, but the way I want to do it, I owe to the military. So I have no problem in tying my identity to the military, but more so defining myself as a warrior, right? And I guess that's the stuff that you and I, Steve, discussed in the past many times, which what started the Silver Savage is we're finding ourselves now, as a lot of people in our demographics, I would say, right? Being warriors without a war, right? It's very easy for us to channel those energy skill sets and drive when there's a mission, there's a goal, there's a team. And a lot of it is not even driven by you. It's from, comes from higher up, go do this. And you just have to come up with how to do it and you go and do it. So it's pretty easy, right? And all of a sudden you're in your mid-20s, early 30s, and in our cases 40s, and there's no more mission, there's no more bad guys that you have to slay, there's no team that you can necessarily, go and talk to after and share those experiences with, and it kind of isolates you, right? And we turn to withdraw, and you and I have these conversations because you go through your phases, I go through my phases, and again, they manifest themselves differently. But when I go through that low, and I go when you go through your lows, right? And I guess in retrospect, my military service and those experiences, that trauma, which I guess can certainly frame it as such, is what defines my relationships today. And I guess that's the key of what I want to talk about, is the way I was trained, the way I led, the way I was led, defines how I interact with others today, right? How do I interact with my family? How do I interact with my friends? How do I interact with my colleagues? How do I run my company? That is all direct result from that. And something that was thrown in my face many times, you said it before, Michael has said it, and this past week, a few other people said it. And I guess that is what prompted this podcast, is that the idea of chaos, right? You always said that chaos is your quiet. And I always admitted that I operate best at chaos, right? It's when that tragedy happens, whether being a personal one or a business one. That's where I excel. That's where I can maintain my cool, and I got this. I can navigate this. This I know, right? But when things are not chaotic, I go back into a state of apathy almost, where things are just rolling, so I don't need to do anything. So there's very extreme highs and lows, very extreme peaks of performance, and then valleys of mundane activity. And what people also pointed out is, if there is no chaos, because I know I thrive on chaos, I start creating my own chaos. I create issues and problems where there aren't any, just so I can operate in a condition that I'm used to and I feel comfortable at. And that is a challenge, right? As I start talking about leadership and mentor others and try to run my own companies, it is not the ideal way of doing things, where you try to create chaos in order to reach a goal, right? So learning lessons from that and applying becomes key. The challenge was that I can't articulate always what I thinking to others, right? Unless they shared our experiences, right? It's hard for people to understand what is going through my mind, or why am I thinking a certain way, or why do I want things done a certain manner. And that certainly comes into play at work. And I keep pointing at you, Steve, because you're actually one of the few that does share my experiences and understands where I'm coming from. So it was easy for me to talk to you and manage you in a sense, right? And I view you as a brother and a colleague and a partner on all accounts. But at the end of the day, if I needed something done in the company, and I knew I can go to you and say, this is what I need done, this is what I want to get done, and you get it done, right?
I might complain, but I'll get it done.
Yeah, that's because you're a Marine and that's what you do.
Yeah, it's protocol.
But you know what? But think about leading other people that worked at our company over the years, and the challenges, and why there was such turnover with some people, because they couldn't handle my management style, because they did not understand where I'm coming from, what's going on in my mind, right? And that means expectations, that means work ethics, that means production of results, right? So there was a disconnect, which certainly affected those relationships. It also came into play with relationships, right? I'm on my 4-5. I'd like to think that I learned my lessons and I'm doing better. Fifth
I was the fourth.
You're always going to be on the side, so it's like a 4.5. I just
want to make it clear and on the record.
Is this legal in Utah?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. No, but seriously, relationships were a challenge, right? When you are trying to explain to someone why you are not feeling well, or why you want to go and hang out with certain people or do certain things, when they did not share those experiences, and
or not hang out with certain people.
100%.
We'll save that for me.
Yep. No, but
100%. That's a big one.
Ex-wives will attest to the fact that I am not an easy person to deal with. And you know what? It took me forever to learn. And one thing that Tyler is very good at, and I give her so much credit for, is she learned to give me the space. So I always told my ex-wives, and I told Tyler as well when we got together, is I will shut down. And if you want me to open up, you got to pry at some point to a certain extent, right? What I neglected to say is that if I need space, I need space, and you need to learn. But I can't articulate when I need the space and when I need him to pry, right? And Tyler not intuitively, there were some trial and errors there and some hard nights, but she's very good now at understanding, okay, right now, PK needs a space. I'm going to come and pry tomorrow when he had an opportunity to kind of reflect on things. But the way I think and the way other people do not think certainly affected a lot of relationships in my kids, right? My expectations from them. I've had a challenge these past couple of weeks with one of my sons getting into fights. And on one end, I'm super proud because he just took on 8 kids that are older than him.
I think we all were.
Yeah, right. But on the flip side is now he keeps doing that because I was proud of him for doing it. Well, I don't know if that's the reason, right? But I certainly will take certain responsibility for it.
Well, he's getting affirmation from his dad, so
So, my expectations from them, academically, athletically, behaviorally, for certain, and they obviously have lived through a divorce, and pretty fresh, right, between me and their mother. So that's affecting. And I'm not an educator by trade. I'm not a loving, caring, nurturing. Although I try, but it comes in waves, right? Again, those peaks and valleys. So,
like a teddy bear covered in needles.
I think I like that analogy.
Not completely covered, but there's a couple.
More like barbed wire.
Yeah, I could go with barbed wire. Yeah,
Right.
There's some fluffy parts in there.
But yeah, so that was always an issue, right? And a lot of it is the way I see them, I see their potential, the way I see you and I see your potential, the way I see, my relationship and its potential, and the company and its potential. And I keep comparing myself to that potential, and I'm not quite there, right? Where in the military, if I had a mission, that is the potential, right? And mission accomplished, good, we have reached a goal, right? There isn't anything above that. In life, that doesn't work that way, right? So what I forget to do is compare myself into what I already accomplished sometimes, and that's also hard, right? So where does that put me now, right? So all that long story about all the challenges I have with myself, for certain, with other people, as well, is where does that put me now? And the first thing is I am not denying my identity being tied to the military, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I am actually proud to be able to share the skills that we teach with others. And I think that's always going to be there. I think one thing that's unique about what we do is that we can bring that real life experience, we can bring that affirmation, um, and we can relate. I mean, if I teach a skill, I've done that skill.
Mhm.
Somebody pointed a gun to my face. Somebody took me to the ground. Somebody, tried to take my gun away from me. Somebody attacked me with a knife, right? And got punched in the face with the muzzle of an AR. Shit happens. But I think that's the value that we bring. And what gives me a lot of pride, joy, and satisfaction is being able to teach. I like teaching women's self-defense seminar. When we have victims of domestic violence come in all shy and timid, and we give them a little bit of empowerment, they walk away just a little bit straighter, just a little bit more assured of themselves. That's what we do. What we do. Teaching cops is fun and sexy, but they already have that.
Right.
But teaching the stay-at-home mom, teaching the corporate, um, 50-year-old individual that's coming in because he's a little bit out of shape and never really been challenged, and now we can give him some skills. So I love doing that, right? But what I have to learn to do is I need to learn to take a step back and separate my expectations from myself from my expectations from others, right? I need to know that not everybody's been through the same, and nobody's looking at what we're doing or what we're trying to accomplish in the same manner or from the same lens. What also I need to learn is that other people value what we do. I sometimes don't see it, right?
I don't either.
Right? I'm like, I can give you so much more, but they're just so thankful for what they've already been given.
And I experienced that when you sent me to Indiana,
Yeah, and people love it, right?
Yeah.
So, but we're like, oh, but that 2-day class could have been a week class. There's so much more stuff that we could have given you, right? So we need to learn to separate that, right? I need to learn not to create chaos. And by that, what I mean is I know what's going to create a chaos. I know how to create a chaos. So how about I set up the processes that would solve that chaos before the chaos happens, right? So working a lot with Michael actually on setting those processes in place so we avoid those peaks and valleys and have more of a standardized kind of growth, right? So maybe that peak is not as much of a peak, but it's an upright trajectory, but it's long lasting, and we don't have those same valleys coming up, right? I'm putting a lot of stock into my relationships right now. So as you guys been seeing, I spend a lot more time with my kids, more than I've ever had in the past. Even though I don't have them full time, I feel like the time with them right now is so much more meaningful. Going to runs with my son.
I've seen the difference.
Yeah,
I've said it before.
I'm super grateful for that. Honestly, that gives me so much joy. My relationship with my wife, I'm making that a priority. So I feel like that is a big lesson learned from me. And as I move forward and I teach more on self-defense, but also leadership and management and just working with, we mentor a few people that run other schools, right? Teaching them how to set proper expectation and communication skills, right? It's funny how I teach others, I learn myself. That's oftentimes how we learn best, right? So I think that has been huge for me. So I guess to summarize kind of like a long monologue in a sense is we need to own our past and we need to not shy away from it. Or, I keep saying we, it's certainly you've done a good job of at least admitting that you have those demons and trying to do something about it. Successful or unsuccessful is a different story, right? But you admitted to them. I mean, you heard me on this podcast multiple times say, I don't have trauma. I don't have
But
that.
it's like you said, right? In helping others, you acknowledge things. And that's what happened to me. It wasn't because I chose to, it was because it slapped me in the face.
So I've been slapped in the face by you many times.
Oh, yeah.
I've been slapped in the face by Michael at least the past year several times.
Yes.
And in the past few weeks, other people's just been calling me out on stuff. And on one end, I'm like, what the fuck is going on that everybody is fucking trying to shove in my face this reality, which I'm grateful for because I've obviously tried to ignore it for the longest time and pretend it's not there, that I don't have those issues or those problems, where it's obvious that I do. And it forces me now to learn from it and move forward and grow from it. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, right? I put in a post yesterday on social media, but we should not be today where we were yesterday, and I should be tomorrow at the same place I am today, right? We should grow and learn every day,
Yes,
whatever
the
it
Blue
is.
Butterfly post.
Yeah. Did you say stupid?
No, I read them.
Oh, before you said stupid. I'm like, I love my butterfly.
No,
Post.
that was a great post.
Thank you.
We've talked about this. Remember when the cicadas came?
Yeah.
same
Right.
concept.
There's another statement that I heard recently, which really resonated, is that the same person doesn't walk in the same river twice. Either the person has changed or the river has moved, right? Typically both, right? But the idea is that the circumstances are always different, and we should always be evolving. And I'm certainly, the river that I'm in today is vastly different than the one that was last year or the year before, right? Our company is different. My relationship is different. I'm different. So I'm looking at it also as an opportunity. And this is kind of like my promise to everybody listening to this, and certainly to you guys in the room, Michael and Stephen, as my partners in crime, my colleagues at Masada and Silver Savage and all our other endeavors, is that I'm taking the steps that I need to take to be better for you, to be better for myself, and
for our students.
And for students.
Else.
All of my relationships,
exactly.
right? But really, you guys are here in the room with me, so I'm giving at you. But I also would hope that you guys hold me accountable in that sense and call me out, which you've been doing a good job at.
I've learned that over the time, because in the beginning, again, being from that same cloth, right? Cut from the same cloth. It's like, all right, I know what he's going through. He'll get over it. Now it's like, no. Because again, different battlefield, different space. So now it's like, no, I got to call him out. I got to stand up and call him out. I know you're not going to get pissed at me. In the past, it's like, oh, he's going to get pissed and butthurt or something like that. Now it's like, no.
Which I probably would have, and I probably may still do so, but I won't take it in a negative manner.
Right. So, and I've learned that. You learn that over time. Yeah. So
I know you want what's best for me, and as I do for you, and I'll be interested in a year from now recording a similar podcast and seeing where we are. Seeing what transformation and changes have occurred in me, in my relationships, and our business, and see how much forward we've moved because of it. So this is coming straight from the heart. This was not, I put myself some bullet points, but certainly wasn't scripted, as you guys could hear. Just a lot of conversations going on, and it was time to admit to my flaws and faults and make myself a list of actionable steps I need to take to get better. And I hope you guys learn something from it as well. And as always, if you guys need assistance with setting goals, or someone to slap you in the face and tell you the reality of where you are and where you need to be, and also how far you've come from where you've been before, hit us up. Anything else? Until next time.
You're only human. Just a really badass one.
Stay savage.